I'm Danielle Schwob, and this is BMI's How I Wrote That Behind the Score. I'm going to take you behind the scenes of a string quartet that I wrote, which is the title track of an album, both of which are called Out of the Tunnel, and tell you a little bit about how I put the project together. So originally it was actually part of a ballet called Infoxication, which I created with curator Roya Sachs, harpist Ashley Jackson, of course the quartet and choreographer Dusan Tinek. It was this whole multimedia extravaganza featuring dancers climbing on tables and crazy lighting, and it was sort of like a Sleep No More meets The Office set in a dystopian world of the future. So for anyone who doesn't know, Public Quartet is a really incredible group of musicians who are just wonderfully versatile. They're as at home playing standard repertoire as they are jazz, improvising, playing on projects with songwriters. And so when I set out to write this piece for them, I really wanted to do something that would cater to their strengths and interests as musicians, while also kind of incorporating my own voice and sensibilities as well. And so I settled on a couple of different primary approaches. The first one was that I was going to write directly into the score, and even though I was going to add electronics to it later, the first port of call was always going to be the string quartet. So I started working directly into Sibelius, which gives me significantly more control than writing into Logic would. The second thing, which I think was actually the most important, was that we were going to workshop the piece throughout the writing process. So I brought in sketches to the group at key points where I really wanted to see what would be musical material that they could really sink their teeth into. So really what I did was just to put together some kind of very simple musical cells, shards of melodies and kernels of musical ideas that I took into the quartet during rehearsals and have them play through and improvise around, just to get a sense for how things would fit under their fingers and where their kind of natural inclination to take the music was. Then as far as writing the music itself and really developing these melodies, I bounced back and forth from the computer and the guitar doing that, because I had hoped that writing on guitar, which speaks so differently to a piano, that I'd be able to kind of imbue what I was writing with the sort of rock spirit that I thought would really fit the group. So since the piece was initially designed to be presented in a premiere performance setting rather than a studio recording or part of a film score or anything that would be presented in like a recorded format, I decided I was going to build an electronic part around it because it needed to scale up to the rest of the pieces that were on the program, one of which was the Rice Triple Quartet, which, if you've heard, is kind of a beast of a piece. So what I wound up doing was taking the acoustic demos of the quartet that we made in rehearsals, bringing them back into Logic, sort of reverse and then engineering a tempo map around what they had played, and then building an electronic part around that which could be adjusted in real time with the dancers as they were figuring out their tempos and staging and their choreography.
That was great.
So as far as building the electronic elements for the track, I built those out of a couple of different things, mostly soft synths, and then also a sample of my concert writing, which is a piece called Meerlicht. And then these are some of the soft synths. And then together, the whole thing sounds like this. Since I'd spent a lot of time watching sort of cinematic visuals and testing the music against movie trailers and films just to make sure that it would kind of live up to the scale that I'd envisioned in my mind, it was important to me to carry that kind of aesthetic over to the visual, but then beyond that to dig a little bit deeper with the piece and actually think about what the whole thing was about to me personally without it being tied to this show. I think just owing to the point in my life, it was more about personally finding an antidote to all of this overwork and this screen dependency. And for me, the answer to that is always time spent in nature. The visual that James Mountford, the director, put together for the project really just lent into that. It was these sweeping cinematic vistas of deserts and mountains and people out in them really kind of reconnecting to the planet and to themselves. And I pretty much told him he could make whatever he wanted as long as it used a drone and looked epic. I think he did a great job.